Imagine a quiet corner of a world that seems frozen in time, a place where the scent of burnt coffee and the sound of a wheezing accordion create a backdrop for the most elaborate lies ever told. In this small, flickering space, everyone is playing a double game, and the man standing behind the bar is the most exhausted person you have ever seen. He is the pivot point of a grand, sweeping farce, a man who just wants to survive the next 5 minutes without his wife catching him, without a painting being stolen, and without the entire house of cards collapsing around his ears. This was the world of a television phenomenon that redefined how we look at pressure and survival, turning the most high-stakes situations into a masterclass of comedic timing and absurdity. It was a show built on catchphrases that felt like secret codes and characters who felt like old friends, even as they plotted and schemed against each other in the shadows of a little cafe. As we stand here in 2026, looking back across the decades, that little cafe feels like more than just a set on a soundstage. It has become a time capsule, a vessel for a specific kind of British humour that managed to find light in the darkest corners of human history. For years, audiences tuned in to see if the secret plans would finally succeed, or if the latest disguise would hold up under the piercing gaze of those who held the power. But beyond the laughter and the ridiculous accents, there was something deeper happening. There was a heartbeat to the story, a pulse driven by a cast of actors who took these larger-than-life archetypes and gave them souls, making us care about their survival even when they were at their most pathetic or their most manipulative. The magic of this production lay in its balance. It was a delicate dance between the ridiculous and the real, where a stolen sausage or a fallen painting could carry the weight of a life or death struggle. At the center of it all was a man whose face became synonymous with the feeling of being trapped by fate, a man whose every weary sigh was a testament to the endurance of the human spirit when faced with impossible odds. We remember the laughter, the frantic whispers, and the way the world seemed to stop every time a certain door opened. But as the years have passed, the story of the people behind those roles has become just as compelling as the scripts they performed. To understand why this show still resonates in 2026, we have to go back to that cafe, look past the jokes, and see the people who made the world smile while everything around them was supposedly falling apart. The atmosphere was one of pure electricity, a constant state of flirtation and fear that kept viewers on the edge of their seats for seasons on end. And it is time we revisit the legends who built that legacy. The man who stood at the center of this swirling storm, the one who navigated the treacherous waters of wartime France with nothing but a nervous sweat and a quick tongue, was Gorden Kaye. Born in the spring of 1941 in Huddersfield, Kaye was already in his early 40s when he first stepped into the shoes of Rene Artois, a character who would go on to define a generation of British sitcom brilliance. Rene was not a hero in the traditional sense. He was a man of the shadows, a man caught between the heavy boots of the occupying forces and the relentless, often absurd demands of the local resistance. Gorden Kaye's genius lay in his ability to portray a state of permanent, vibrating anxiety. He was a master of the exhausted stare, the kind of look that told the audience everything they needed to know about the impossibility of his situation. Whether he was hiding British airmen in his cellar or trying to keep a legendary painting from falling into the wrong hands, Kaye made every second feel like a high-wire act. His timing was impeccable, finding the exact moment to deliver a whispered scheme or a frantic excuse to his wife. Even after the cameras stopped rolling and the series concluded its monumental run, Kaye's presence lingered in the hearts of millions. However, the years that followed carried a quieter, more somber tone. As the world moved on, Kaye began to step away from the blinding lights of the stage and screen, eventually facing a deeply personal struggle with dementia. His passing in January of 2017 at the age of 75 marked the end of an era, leaving a void that still resonates in 2026. He wasn't just a lead actor, he was the very pulse of the cafe, a man who showed us that survival often looks a lot like a comedy of errors, standing right beside him through every chaotic mission and every suspicious glance was the indomitable Edith Artois. Portrayed with fearless energy by Carmen Silvera, Edith was much more than the long-suffering wife of a philandering cafe owner. Born in Toronto in 1922, Silvera brought a seasoned theatricality to the role, appearing on screen for the first time as Edith when she was 60 years old. To the audience, Edith was famously, hilariously tone-deaf, her attempts at cabaret singing becoming a legendary staple of the show. Yet, Silvera never played her as a mere caricature. There was a fierce, unshakable dignity in Edith, a woman who walked into humiliation with her head held high, as if she owned every stage she stood upon. She was the one constant in Rene's world, the anchor that kept him grounded even when he was trying his best to drift away. Her loyalty was as loud and dramatic as her singing, and her ability to suspect her husband, while simultaneously remaining his most devoted partner, created a dynamic that was both tender and ridiculous. Carmen Silvera's career extended far beyond the walls of the cafe, spanning decades of theatre and television work, where she showcased her impeccable command of comedic timing. When she passed away in August of 2002 at the age of 80 from lung cancer, the world lost a voice that, however off-key, made the fictional world of wartime France feel vibrant and alive. Looking back in 2026, her performance remains a masterclass in how to play a character who is both the joke and the heart of the story. The atmosphere of tension within the cafe was often fueled by the arrival of the military authorities, none more memorable than Colonel Kurt von Strom. Richard Marner, the man behind the uniform, brought a fascinating background to the production, having been born in Petrograd, Russia, in 1921. When he first took on the role of the colonel in 1982, Marner was 61, and he infused the character with a specific kind of pomposity that was always on the verge of collapsing into cowardice. Von Strom was the comedy of corruption, a man far more interested in securing stolen art and personal profit than in the grand strategies of the conflict. Marner's gift was making this corruption feel absurdly pathetic rather than genuinely frightening. He turned every barked order into a potential punchline and every failure into a smug, self-important shrug. He was the big boss who was constantly outmatched by the very people he supposed he controlled. After his time in the cafe ended, Marner continued to work steadily, often being cast as stern authority figures in more serious productions, a testament to his versatility as an actor. Yet, for fans of the show, he will always be the man who proved that power is never quite as impressive as it wants to be, especially when it's being satirized with such precision. His death in March of 2004 at the age of 82 left behind a legacy of laughter that remains a defining part of the show's satirical edge, and then there was the sharp, disciplined presence of Private Helga Gerhardt. Kim Hartman, born in London in 1952, joined the series at the age of 30 and immediately carved out a space for herself as the strict, efficient secretary who held more secrets than a filing cabinet. Helga was a character built on controlled chaos. Her humour was not found in loud outbursts, but in the rigid way she maintained her composure while the world around her spiraled out of control. Hartman excelled at showing the cracks in Helga's armour, particularly when it came to her unexpected romantic tensions and her secret vulnerabilities. She allowed the character's stern face to do the heavy lifting of the comedy, making the moments when her heart slipped through all the more effective. Since the show's conclusion, Kim Hartman has continued to be a beloved figure in the entertainment industry, working across television, theatre, and voiceover projects. In 2026, at 74 years old, her legacy as Helga feels surprisingly modern. She represents a character who was tough, capable, and hilariously human, proving that even in the most rigid systems, personality has a way of breaking through. As the spotlight shifts, we begin to see how these individuals were woven into a much larger tapestry of intrigue. The cafe was not just a place for drinks and snacks. It was a theatre of the absurd, where every character, from the highest-ranking officer to the lowliest waitress, had a part to play in a game of high-stakes survival. The tension in the air was thick with the scent of hidden agendas, and as we peel back the layers of this story, we find that the true essence of the report lies in how these separate lives converged to create something truly unforgettable. The details of their individual paths only add to the gravity of what they achieved together. And as we prepare to reveal the full scope of what happened behind those closed doors, the weight of their legacy becomes impossible to ignore. Each actor brought a specific energy that contributed to the show's unique rhythm, a rhythm that continues to beat loudly in the hearts of fans even today. The story is only just beginning to reveal its true depth, and the revelations that follow will shed even more light on why these legends remain so vital to our cultural memory in 2026. Beyond the immediate family and the high-ranking officers, the cafe functioned as a magnetic pole for some of the most complex and endearing figures of the conflict, none more surprising than Lieutenant Hubert Gruber. Guy Siner, born in Manhattan in 1947, stepped into Gruber's polished boots at the age of 35, creating a character that many consider the comedic miracle of the entire series. Gruber was the quintessential polite enemy, a man of refinement and gentle manners who found himself perpetually adrift in a world of crude schemes and violent intentions. What made Gruber so vital to the essence of the report was the way he humanized the opposition through a lens of sweet, awkward admiration for Rene. His presence introduced a layer of tension that was never about malice, but about a sincere, often misplaced hope for connection. Siner played him with a delicate touch, ensuring that the joke was never that the character was foolish, but rather that he was far too human for the uniform he wore. This nuance is precisely why Gruber remains a fan favorite in 2026. He represented the soft underbelly of the show's satire, proving that even in a landscape defined by lines of battle, the heart has a way of wandering across the border. Since his time in the cafe, Guy Siner has enjoyed a prolific career, even making a memorable appearance in the blockbuster world of Pirates of the Caribbean. The Curse of the Black Pearl. Now 78, he stands as a reminder that the most lasting characters are those built on affection rather than cruelty, and that a truly great performance can make us love a character we were supposed to fear. The stakes of the survival game were often dictated by the sharp commands of the French resistance, personified by the legendary Michel Dubois. Kirsten Cook, born in 1952, was 30 when she first delivered the iconic instruction to listen very carefully, for she would say this only once. Michelle was the pulse of the show's suspense, a leader whose power came from absolute and unwavering precision. While the cafe was a place of frantic improvisation, Michelle brought the discipline of a soldier, even when her plans involved the most ridiculous disguises or improbable gadgets. Kirsten Cook's brilliance was in her ability to make Michelle fearless without ever making her cold. She was the anchor for the show's many missions, the voice of authority that kept the madness moving toward a goal. In 2026, as she celebrates her 73rd year, Michelle remains an unforgettable symbol of the fantasy we all secretly harbor, the ability to walk into a disaster, give a perfect set of instructions, and somehow make it out the other side. Cook's transition into a more private life after the show has only added to the mystery and respect surrounding her portrayal, leaving the work to stand as a testament to her command of the screen. If Michelle was the discipline of the resistance, then Herr Otto Flick was the rigid, terrifying face of the secret police, yet he was also the show's greatest subversion of authority. Richard Gibson, born in Uganda in 1954, was only 28 when he crafted this iconic role. Flick was a masterpiece of discomfort, a man of deadpan intensity and a personality so stiff it became hypnotic. The essence of the report truly reveals itself here. The show's power was its ability to take the most frightening symbols of the era and render them completely and utterly ridiculous. Gibson played Flick as a man who genuinely believed he was the most terrifying person in the room, which made his bizarre failures and his awkward, robotic feelings for Helgoland with double the impact. He was the nightmare of authority made into a punchline, reminding the audience that fear loses its grip the moment you start to laugh at it. By 2026, Richard Gibson, now 72, is still recognized for this transformative performance. His work demonstrated that comedy can be a weapon of its own, a way to dismantle the gravity of dark times by highlighting the absurdity of those who seek to control them. The true importance of what happened in that little cafe stretches far beyond the scripts. It was a cultural experiment in how we process history and trauma. By turning the pressure of war into a farce, the cast and creators gave the world a way to look at survival without being overwhelmed by it. The secret plan was never just about a painting or a pair of airmen. It was a plan to keep the human spirit alive through the power of a shared smile. Each character, from the whispering resistance leader to the polite lieutenant, served as a different facet of that survival. They showed us that even when you are trapped between opposing forces, you can still find a way to flirt, to lie, and to laugh. This is why the show feels like a time capsule that still works in 2026. It doesn't just document a period of history. It documents a fundamental human truth about resilience. The characters were people just trying to make it through the next 5 minutes, and in doing so, they created a legacy of joy that has lasted for more than 40 years. The way their lives unfolded after the secret plans stopped is a story of quiet victories and bittersweet farewells, proving that while the show was a farce, the people who made it were very real, and their contributions were nothing short of legendary. While the leaders and the villains occupied the center of the stage, the true texture of the story was woven by the people who populated the corners of the cafe, those whose lives were just as entangled in the chaos of survival. Perhaps no two figures represented the absurdity of the situation more than the British airmen, Flying Officer Fairfax and Flying Officer Carstairs. John D. Collins, who portrayed Fairfax, was 40 when he first became the man trapped in a perpetual loop of failed escapes. His performance was a masterclass in the comedy of the helpless, a man who just wanted to get home but found himself constantly disguised in the most humiliating ways. In 2026, at the age of 83, Collins remains a beloved figure, a reminder that Fairfax was never a clown, but a decent man caught in a story that refused to let him go. His counterpart, Carstairs, was brought to life by Nicholas Frankau, who was only 28 at the time. Carstairs was famously defined by his terrible French and his misplaced confidence, yet Frankau played him with a bright, frantic sincerity that made every mistake feel like a genuine attempt at heroism. Interestingly, Frankau's path after the show took a turn that mirrors the resourcefulness of his character. He transitioned into software engineering, a real-life pivot that feels like a quiet victory of adaptation. Now 71, his story serves as a testament to finding a life that feels authentic, far removed from the glare of the spotlight. The romantic and professional rivalries within the cafe were further complicated by the arrival of the local undertaker, Monsieur Alphonse, and the lethargic Captain Hans Geering. Kenneth Connor, who played Alphonse, was already a legend of British comedy from the Carry On films when he joined the cast at 66. He brought a classic theatrical energy to the role, turning the Undertaker's dramatic health complaints and his persistent pursuit of Edith into a source of constant friction for Rene. Connor's legacy, even decades after his passing in 1993, is one of handmade humour where character always came before the gag. In contrast, Sam Kelly's Captain Geering was the embodiment of effortless, modern sarcasm. Geering seemed bored by the war and entirely unimpressed by the authority he was supposed to represent. His mispronunciations, especially that famous slip of a greeting that fans still echo today, became the stuff of legend. Kelly, who passed away in 2014, left behind a body of work that proved he was a versatile talent, capable of much more than just comic relief. By 2026, the absence of these two giants is felt deeply, as they represented the bridge between the old world of British variety and the new era of the television sitcom. The cafe was also defined by the women who kept its wheels turning, each bringing a different shade of loyalty and ambition to the table. Vicky Michelle's Yvette Carte Blanche was the glamorous heart of the establishment, her famous catchphrase becoming a kind of sitcom music that signaled both flirtation and a deeper longing for escape. In 2026, at 75, Michelle remains closely connected to the show's enduring legacy, her performance standing as a reminder of the universal desire for something more, even in the midst of disaster. Alongside her were Maria Recamier and Mimi Le Bon. Francesca Gonshaw's Maria was the innocent contrast to the schemers, a character played with a gentle sincerity that made her feel like someone worth protecting. Her real-life transition into publishing and writing after 3 seasons mirrors the theme of finding a new voice beyond the cafe walls. Now 66, her legacy is a quiet reminder that goodness can survive even when the world tries to make it a joke. Sue Hodge, as the tiny powerhouse Mimi, brought a fierce, high-energy devotion to the resistance and to Rene, proving that the smallest person in the room often carries the biggest emotional weight. At 68, she continues to keep the spirit of the series alive through stage adaptations, embodying the resilience that made the show a classic. The later seasons and broader scope of the conflict introduced even more layers of intrigue, such as the fearless Louise and the transition of the iconic hair flick. Carol Ashby's Louise brought a sense of heat and urgency to the resistance, her confidence making the cowardice of others look truly embarrassing. Ashby, who also enjoyed success as a Bond girl in films like Octopussy, proved she could handle high-stakes glamour just as easily as sitcom chaos. In 2026, at 70, she remains a symbol of the courage we all wish we had. When the role of Hair Flick was taken over by David Janssen in the final season, it was a moment of television history that showed how powerful a character's silhouette could be. Janssen, now 75, respected the chilling weirdness that Richard Gibson had established, ensuring that the shiver before the laugh remained intact for the audience. Even minor characters like the monk, played by the respected Roger Hammond, added a lived-in quality to the world. Hammond's ability to shift the energy of a room with just a few moments of screen time was a testament to his skill as a character actor. Though he passed in 2012, his presence, like so many others, remains part of the show's rich, bittersweet afterlife. Together, these actors created a world where the laughter was loud, but the reality of their shared journey across time is what truly gives the cafe its lasting magic. As the final echoes of the accordion fade into the quiet streets of a fictional village, we find ourselves standing in a future that the patrons of Rene's cafe could never have imagined. It is 2026, and the world has moved on in 1,000 different directions. Yet the gravity of that little French establishment still pulls at our collective memory. The story of Rene Artois and his complicated, beautiful, and utterly ridiculous life was never just about a series of comedic misunderstandings or a collection of iconic catchphrases. It was, at its very core, a profound testament to the fact that even in the most restricted and dangerous of times, the human spirit refuses to be entirely serious. The cafe was a sanctuary where the rules of the world were suspended, replaced by a code of farce and survival that resonated with millions of people across the globe. Today, as we revisit those episodes, we aren't just watching a sitcom. We are stepping into a time capsule that holds a specific kind of warmth, a defiance that suggests that as long as we can laugh, we are never truly defeated. The legacy of those who walked through that set is not found in the awards they won or the ratings they achieved, but in the way they made us feel about the messy, unpredictable nature of being alive. The actors who brought these legends to life have walked varied and fascinating paths since the secret plans finally stopped. For some, the journey ended with a quiet dignity, leaving behind a body of work that continues to provide comfort to new generations. The passing of Gorden Kaye, Carmen Silvera, Richard Marner, and the others who have left the stage has turned the reruns into something far more significant than mere entertainment. These episodes have become a way to keep their voices and their genius present in our lives, ensuring that the sparkle in Rene's eye or the off-key vibrato of Edith's voice is never truly lost to time. For those who remain with us in 2026, now in their 70s and 80s, the show stands as a badge of honor, a reminder of a time when they were part of a cultural phenomenon that blurred the lines between satire and heart. Whether they continued to chase the spotlight or found peace in entirely different worlds, like software engineering or the quiet life of a writer, they carry the spirit of the cafe with them. They are a living link to an era of television where characters were built to last, and where the chemistry of an ensemble could create a magic that defied the constraints of a simple script. The strange magic of the series remains its uncanny ability to find the human heart underneath the layers of disguises and the constant threat of discovery. We see it in the way Lieutenant Gruber's gentleness still touches us, reminding us that even an enemy can be a friend in the right light. We feel it in the frantic, high-stakes energy of Mimi and the glamorous, hopeful longing of Yvette, who both dreamed of lives that were bigger than the war. It is a world where every character was just trying to survive the next 5 minutes. And in that frantic struggle, they reflected our own daily battles, albeit in a much more colourful and hilarious way. The cafe was a microcosm of a world in chaos, and by making us laugh at that chaos, the cast gave us a tool to handle the uncertainties of our own lives. In 2026, as we face our own set of global challenges and shifts, the message of the show is perhaps more relevant than it has ever been. It tells us that survival is not just about staying safe, It is about staying human, staying funny, and staying connected to the people around us, no matter how ridiculous the situation becomes. As we look back from the vantage point of 2026, we realize that the show was a masterclass in the art of the pivot. Actors like Nicholas Frankau and Francesca Gonshaw showed us that there is a life after the laughter, a way to take the lessons of improvisation and apply them to the real world. Meanwhile, those who stayed close to the show's legacy, like Vicky Michelle and Sue Hodge, have become the guardians of a flame that refuses to go out. They attend the conventions, they speak to the fans, and they ensure that the stories of what happened behind the scenes are preserved. This connection between the actors and the audience is what makes the show feel like a living thing rather than a relic of the past. The reruns land differently now because we know the full story, we know the paths they took, and the hurdles they cleared. The laughter is still loud, echoing through the decades, but the silence of the years that have passed is louder, adding a bittersweet layer to every joke. It reminds us to cherish the moments of connection we have and to find the humor in the absurd situations we inevitably find ourselves in every single day. The cast of this legendary series taught us that no matter how many secret plans fail, and no matter how many times we are caught in a lie, there is always a chance for a fresh start, a new scheme, and another reason to smile. Their stories, both on and off the screen, form a connected narrative of resilience that will never truly go out of style. The secret plan was in many ways the show itself, a plan to keep the world laughing when things felt impossible. As we finally close the door on Rene's cafe for the last time in this report, we are left with a feeling of profound gratitude. These faces, these voices, and these moments of pure farce have become a part of our own history. They are the friends who stayed with us through the years, the ones who reminded us that even when the painting is hidden in a sausage and the airmen are in the cellar, life is still worth a glass of wine and a good laugh. This journey back to the world of secret passwords and stolen paintings reminds us that the greatest survival skill of all is the ability to laugh at the impossible. The legends of the cafe may be in different places now, some in the stars and some in our neighborhoods. But the world they built remains open for business every time we press play. If this walk down memory lane has touched your heart or brought a smile to your face, we invite you to stay a part of this enduring conversation. These legends may have moved on from the cafe, but they will never move on from our collective memory. Like and subscribe to keep the spirit of classic storytelling and legendary performances alive. Tell us in the comments which of these iconic characters still makes you laugh first when you step back into that world. Was it the weary and slippery Rene, the unshakable and loud Edith, the polite and gentle Gruber, or the chillingly absurd hair flick? Let us know your favorite memories as we continue to celebrate the lives and the legacies that made history feel a little less heavy and a lot more like a joke we were all lucky enough to be in on together. News banner: the 2026 State of the Allo Allo! Legacy is characterized by a powerful resurgence in fan interest and public appearances, with principal cast members Kim Hartman and Vicky Michelle recently headlining major international conventions in Prague and London. As the global audience continues to honor the definitive performances of the late Gorden Kaye and Carmen Silvera, the surviving ensemble, including Guy Siner, Sue Hodge, and Kirsten Cook, maintains the production's cultural prominence through active engagement in the arts and broadcast media. The diverse post-series trajectories of the cast, ranging from Nicholas Frankau's successful career in software engineering to the ongoing theatrical tours of Sue Hodge, underscore a unique narrative of professional adaptation. 44 years after the gates of the fictional occupied France first opened, the show's themes of survival and comedic defiance remain a cornerstone of British television history, securing its position as a timeless cultural anchor in 2026.